Hi, my name's Roma, and today's podcast we are going to talk about mindfulness management with alcohol. We've got Jude with us. Hi Jude, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi Roma, thanks for having me. Yes, my name is Jude Duncan and I work at Turning Point within the partnerships team as a senior recovery worker, and I'm responsible for harm reduction within the service.
Okay, and so what does harm reduction mean when it comes to alcohol?
Well, in a sense, as we've talked many times, Roma, about dependency, harm reduction looks at ways of being safe when you're using substances, and alcohol is a substance, and maybe not safe but safer. And there are, as we've talked before, there's a lot of people that have got into dependency issues with drugs and alcohol, and alcohol is a drug. A lot of people have got into it, and there's many routes into that. There's more than one route out. It's not always abstinence-based. People don't always want to be abstinence-based. They find that quite fearful. So in a sense, moderation management is about being mindful of what you're drinking, when you're drinking, whether to have breaks or not, really looking at the reasons why you may be having that drink. Is it about enjoyment, or is it about blocking something out? For example, making plans for non-drinking days so that people aren't thinking about so much. So, for example, if you don't want to go to the pub, you might go to the gym, schedule work meetings late so you're out of the temptation. And again, for some people, the idea of getting through a week without a drink is quite difficult, but they may not be dependent. So in terms of stopping altogether, moderation management looks at ways of moderating your alcohol, and it's so much about mindfulness, being mindful of what you're drinking, being mindful of the strength of drink, why you're drinking, and the outcomes of that session, if you like, on your body, physically and mentally. So it's more about that, really.
I suppose, especially with like recently had the lockdown, a lot of people, they were drinking nearly every day. It was like a coping mechanism, like you said, And I suppose some people are finding that difficult now to go back to where they were, probably having a glass of wine with a meal at night. So what would be the best way for them to move forward with that?
Gosh, again, there's a lot out there. There's a lot on the internet. You can keep a daily diary. You don't have to do that in a book form. You can keep that on your phone. There's drink aware apps where you can look at strengths of drinks. You can look at how much you drink. You can track your drinking methods. But again, I think particularly in your relationships with other people, you can talk about it. So if you're a little bit worried, even if it is, as you say, creeping up, you can maybe mention to a friend, a family member, some people that you don't particularly want to drink that day.
And more than likely, a lot of the family or friends have probably noticed that, they're drinking more than they usually do anyway, don't they? So just get that support would be a real good help to them, I suppose.
Yeah, and alcohol, in a sense, is really normalised in society, and people can get it anywhere at any time. It's legal. It's not an illegal thing, so it's easy to seek out. And you're right, in the pandemic, I would imagine there's a lot of people who were stuck in. Their relationships were strained. They may have been furloughed. They may have been laid off. And it is easy to pick up a drink to stop that boredom, to get through the day. It may have had a negative effect on your relationship in the home and your children, particularly children who do notice. So again, it is about being mindful. There's a lot of mindfulness apps out there where you can look at relaxation techniques, you can look at walking, you can look at exercise, you can look at diverting yourself away from alcohol a little bit, and perhaps looking at what days you're going to drink and what days you're not going to drink. Things like that would help. And in a sense, that's harm reduction, because you're reducing the harm significantly to yourself and your relationships. but you're not necessarily giving up altogether.
Yeah, because I think the thing is as well, I know on social media, especially like apps like TikTok and everything, they were all like morning drinking. It was like accepted in the lockdown, you know. But this is when it can creep up, isn't it? And you know, because it's not normal. It's not normal to be drinking like that, and to look at it as if it's funny. It can like turn itself around and then become a real problem for people, which is quite sad, really.
Yeah, I mean, alcohol is used as a disinhibitor as well, isn't it, mostly? And a lot of people, again, at this time of year and getting into the winter, can be lonely and isolated at home. They may have had financial problems. You know, we're still not in a place where we're allowed to go out. You know, we are allowed to go out, but, you know, it's still restricted. Winter's coming. People haven't got any money, alcohol's cheap, and it is really, really important to be mindful of what you're drinking. Myself personally, I do drink alcohol, and I try and employ the methods that I've just talked about, like not drinking in the week, like maybe waiting till a Saturday so you can enjoy watching a film with a couple of glasses of wine after a meal. And again, you know, it's not hard to do, but you do have to get into a pattern, I suppose, in the same way as you would if you're in an abstinence-based program, because you have to be mindful every day of what you're doing.
And do you find if you say, like, for instance, you went out on a night out, you say you like to drink, have a glass of wine or whatever, and if you didn't want to drink that night, do you find you get pressure to drink when you go out? You know, people seem to don't accept when you don't want to have a drink. It's like you have to make an excuse.
Yes. I know I've got a very good friend who gave up drinking for a year and was pressurised into drinking at a party. And in the end, she resorted to drinking non-alcohol gin and tonic in a gin glass, so she wouldn't get asked those questions. And she was deemed not as much fun when not drinking. And again, I think that's an issue. Confidence, low self-esteem, fitting in with people, having a couple of drinks. I mean, it used to be called Dutch courage, didn't it? Years ago. I remember that term. I don't know why it's called Dutch courage, but people will do that, won't they, to get the courage up to socialise, because we have been locked up in. People want relationships with people now. They want to get out and about. So alcohol is a buffer, and it can numb all of those things, and people put that pressure on you. But I think the more people that say, I'm not drinking by choice, and talk about it and get it out there, is for the better, because it's not the person that's the problem, it's the people
and
around.
I think our society, I mean, this country, alcohol, it's just, you know, it's a really serious drug, really, and it's so accepted, you know. And I noticed another thing on social media when we're in lockdown. A lot of people were like building bars in their garden. Everything seemed to revolve around alcohol. You know, it's just, in other countries it's not like that, is it? Our country seems to be quite...
I think in a lot of countries they may, you know, again, they've got the culture where you may go out for a glass of wine with a meal. It's a bit more, a bit more mindful, I think, and purposeful, really, because people will enjoy that. Whereas you're right, here, there's bars being built, there's parties coming up. The price of alcohol in supermarkets seems to go down, buy one, get one free, so we're encouraged to be in a drunk state, really, I think.
You've got Christmas coming up, it's everywhere, isn't it? The soaps, it's always on the soaps, the adverts, it's everywhere. And
Christmas is a big deal, and again, when we're talking about relations with other people, it's a hotbed, isn't it? You know, you can see when everyone's getting together, they might not have been together for a few months or even years. Out comes the alcohol, the relationships, there's always an argument somewhere along the line because it's a disinhibitor. Or again, you've got the other side where people might be lonely and on their own, and Christmas isn't that happy time for people, is it? Not everyone, it's picture perfect from the television and media. So there's many reasons, but I think moderation management isn't dismissing an abstinence-based program. Obviously, that's necessary, really necessary, if need be, but it's just about being mindful and maybe using things on your phone to track what you're drinking, and you might shock yourself. You might think, actually, I've had too much. I need to calm down, or I might need to talk to someone, or I might need to switch that drink to a soft drink.
And can you get all these apps? Or you can just download them, can you?
Yeah, if you go on Google, on App Store, you could put alcohol management in there, and you can get, there's a lot out there on the internet about managing your alcohol use in a safer way.
Yeah. So what would be your the top 3 things to try and cut your drinking down then? The management of it.
In terms of my top 3 would be mindful of the strength of the alcohol you're drinking, be mindful of when you're drinking and how much, say for example every day of the week, and removing some of those days. Excuse me. My other one would be to don't keep it to yourself, share it with others, and try and get into a pattern of exercise, doing something else, distraction techniques. I think those 3 things for me are quite key in managing what you do with substances, really.
So really it's like, especially with the exercise and that, it's doing things rather than picking up that extra drink, isn't it? You know, not your life revolving around it anymore.
Yes, exactly. And also there's a lot of help out there. You don't have to be physically dependent on alcohol to get help from services. Turning Point and Dear Albert will help people and support people should they want to talk about any aspect of their drinking that is causing them concern.
Yeah. And I think as well, like you said, you know, people think you're not as interesting when you're drinking. But there's a lot of bars now what are opening up, what are non-alcohol bars, aren't they? So, you know, it is getting accepted a bit more now, isn't it? Or, you know, you can have a couple, but you don't have to get hammered to enjoy yourself. It's getting a little bit more accepted, hopefully. So
I hope so, yeah. And again, there's lots of places you can go without drinking. But if you let people know, and again, pick somewhere to go that hasn't maybe got a bar, although, you know, there's a lot that do. There are places that don't. And you don't have to disclose that you are necessarily a problematic alcoholic, if you like, but you can say, maybe I don't want to go there, can we try this bar? And, you know, people will support you. And again, services have every hope that people will come in and talk about alcohol as possibly a problem before it gets to dependency.
Yeah. And very quickly, I just think, you know, if rather than people thinking they've got a little problem and it's going to get bigger, don't just stop, isn't it? You can't just stop drinking. You've got people's heads.
Absolutely. Regardless of whether you're physically dependent, perhaps you need to ease off a bit. If you've drank a bottle of wine every day for a week, for example, maybe you need to ease down off that rather than stop because you've had daily drinking and then move on to non-daily drinking, that kind of thing. But there is help and support out there for anyone that's concerned about drinking patterns, regardless of physical dependency or not.
That's lovely. So thanks for coming in today, Jude. It's been lovely having you and it's been really interesting. Thank you.
Thanks, Roma.